You want to describe the Jewish people accurately, all you need is one tiny word. Am Yisrael. You get it? Chai. We prefer life over existence. And what that means, I would rather be needed than needy. Let's talk about the first woman, because I think we got off on the wrong foot. Right in the Garden of Eden, something went wrong. And Chava got a very bad reputation. I think it's time to clear it up. So let's start at the beginning, and we'll do this quickly. It's a two-part talk. The first is about Chava, and the second is about us. God says to Adam, of all the trees of the garden you may eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you may not eat from it, for the day you eat from it you will die. Right? Familiar? You've heard of Chava. An hour later, they ate from the tree. An hour later. Now God comes to Adam and says, you ate from the tree I told you not to eat from? What does he say? It's her fault. God says to Chava, what did you do? She says, the snake's fault. I'm not going to ask a snake. So that conversation ended. And then God says, because you did this, you're going to suffer by the sweat of your brow. You're going to eat bread. It's going to be hard to make a living. There'll be pain in childbirth. And they were expelled from the Garden of Eden. Have you ever heard a more confusing, discouraging, terrible story? First of all, God spoke to Adam up close and personal, right? In fact, there was nobody else around. Can you imagine Adam saying, are you talking to me? There was no one else. God spoke to him personally. Did he make no impression? Can God speak to someone and make no impression? An hour later, he goes and he eats from the tree. Even I would wait till after Shabbos. Second question. What is wrong with Adam? What kind of a human being is this? Particularly since he didn't have a Yetzer Hara. So how do we explain this? The Yetzer Hara came from eating. But what made him do it? So many of the commentaries say what we learn from this is that the Yetzer Hara will always tempt you in the one thing that you're not allowed to do. That may be true, but it wasn't true of Adam because he didn't have a Yetzer Hara. So it's a nice lesson to learn, but it doesn't explain the story. How could he? And then when God asks him what he did, he's a couple of hours old and he's already blaming her. I mean, come on. How fast can we fall? And then she blames the snake. Aren't you embarrassed? The snake made me do it? The snake was smarter than you? This is not a nice story. Then another question. God says, don't eat from the tree. The day you eat from it, you'll die. Was death really a threat? They were 9 hours old. Did they already have a survival instinct? They didn't want to die. Did they even know what death meant? Did anything ever die? So what kind of threat was this? A really serious question is, what does it mean? Don't eat from the tree. The day you eat from it, you'll die. There's a day that I will eat from it? So confusing. Even psychologically, when you tell a child, don't ever run into the street, it's not good to say, if you do, because that weakens your whole premise. You don't. God doesn't say, if you do. He said, the day you do. That sounds like someday you will. So, do I or don't I? Confusing. And then there's a halachic problem. God says, because you ate from the tree, you're going to suffer. That was not the deal. The deal was, the day you eat from it, you'll die. You can't add more punishment after the fact. It's not kosher. So God is saying, oh, now I decided that not only will you die, but until you die, you're going to suffer. Life stinks and then you die. Can't do that. Now the main question. Why are you telling me the story? This supposed to help me? You start to learn Torah. It's the first story in the Torah. And the first story says that there was a human being who was perfect. Didn't have bad friends, didn't grow up in a bad neighborhood, was not traumatized in his toilet training by his mother, had no issues whatsoever. And he was given one commandment, and he had no Yetzer Hara. He lasted an hour. What chance do we have? None. It's like the Torah saying, I'm going to give you a bunch of commandments, but don't take it too seriously, because you're not going to manage. It's a horrible story. As a result, for the last 5,780 years, everybody blames Chava. She destroyed the world. Let's back up a little bit. Get a completely different perspective on the story. Adam and Chava are two souls in heaven. God comes to them and says, I need you to go down to the lowest world and fix it, elevate it, make it godlier than heaven. They open their eyes, they're in the Garden of Eden, and they're having a conversation. It's all been recorded. The conversation went like this. Adam said, what are we doing here? We were told to fix the world. How? All the trees in the garden are kosher. They don't need fixing. There's one tree that needs fixing, but we're not allowed to eat from it. What are we doing here? The other question was, do we or don't we? What is this mixed message? Don't eat from the tree the day you do eat from the tree. Chava said, it's not a mixed message. It's a choice. God is asking us to make a choice. We have the option of not eating from the tree and living, or eating from the tree and dying. It's an option. So Adam said, well then let's not eat from the tree. Chava said, God wants us to eat from the tree. So Adam said, how do you know that? How could you possibly know that? And Chava said, you men never listen. That's when it started. And he said, what? That's when that started. What didn't I hear? Chava said, our job is to elevate the lowest world. This is not the lowest world. There's a world in which people die. That's the lowest world, and that's where our job is. So God is saying, make a choice. You want to stay here and live forever, or you want to fulfill your mission? To fulfill your mission, you got to go down to the lowest world. And the way to do that is by eating from the tree. Adam said, you know, you make a lot of sense. So they ate from the tree. Now God comes to Adam and says, you ate from the tree I told you not to eat from? He wasn't angry, he was marveling. How did you know? Being a pure, honest, innocent, unaffected soul, he said, I didn't know. She knew. So God says to Chava, how did you know? She said, the snake described what would happen, and it sounded like something we should do. So God says, that's perfect. Wonderful. Now let me tell you a little more about that world. In that world, you don't have fruits growing from every tree ready to eat. You're going to have to work hard to make bread. And you're not going to have a child every hour. It's going to take a little longer than that. It's going to be painful. So, there was no sin. There was no punishment. It was exactly what God wanted. The proof of all of this is the pasuk, the verse, immediately after the story of eating of the tree. The next verse, the Torah says, and Adam named his wife Chava, which means the mother of all living things. Now, wait a minute. Chava is the mother of all death, isn't she? Isn't that her reputation? Immediately after eating from the tree and being told that they're leaving the Garden of Eden, Adam names his wife the mother of all life. Amazing? So the first thing is, we apologize to Chava for having spoken Lashon Hara about her, for misunderstanding her. She was the smartest human being ever. Did she know that fixing the world would take 5,780 years? Probably. What's 5,000 years to somebody who was going to live forever? And by the way, she lived to be 1,000. Everybody thinks Mr. Shelach was the oldest. Chava was the oldest. She lived to 1,000. Adam was also going to live to 1,000, but he gave away 70 years to David. So Chava lived the longest, and she is the mother of all life, because it was her wisdom that enables us to fulfill our mission for which we are born. And here we are, doing what she volunteered to do. One other thought about Adam and Chava. When they were sitting and discussing to eat or not to eat, they weren't concerned about themselves at all, because to them it would make no difference. In Gan Eden, out of Gan Eden, live, die, it made no difference to them. They just wanted to do the right thing. But the right thing for the children, for them it didn't matter. So here was the discussion. If they don't eat from the tree, they remain in the Garden of Eden, and all of their children will be tzaddikim. If they eat from the tree and go out of Gan Eden, they will still be tzaddikim, but their children maybe not. Maybe they'll have to do tshuva. So Adam said, let's not eat from the tree. Our children will always be tzaddikim. What could be better? Chava said, I want my children to be Balei Tshuva, because tshuva is higher than a tzaddik. And when she convinced Adam that that was the case, Adam agreed to eat. So when God comes to Adam and says, you ate from the tree I told you not to eat from, how did you know? How did you know that a Baal Tshuva is greater than a tzaddik? The Gemara hadn't been written yet. So he said, she knew. Because when it comes to children, you ask a mother. And that's why he named her the mother of all life. That's part one. By the way, if your name is Chava, don't feel bad. Like, why would anybody name me that? It's a great name. Part two. What is life? What is life? She is the mother of all life. What's life?
Magazine.
A discontinued magazine. So again, let's start at the beginning. When God created the world, He created things out of nothing, right? Which means nothing existed. God made things exist. In addition to making them exist, He also gave everything a life. So there are two very different parts of creation. Things have to exist, and things have to have a life. What is the difference between existing and living? Existing means taking up space. Did you know that?
Yes.
Literally, scientifically, to exist, to be, means taking up space. If you don't take up space, you don't exist. If you take up space, you exist. Everything in this world exists by taking up space. Everything. Fire takes up space. One fire does not permit another fire in the same space. Water, of course, exists by taking up space. Air takes up space. Even a thought in your brain takes up space. One thought does not permit another. You can't think two thoughts at the same time. Your mind is preoccupied. An emotion in the heart takes up space. When you're feeling an emotion, your heart is full. You can have another emotion, but then they take you away. You know what I mean? If you have conflicting emotions, you got a problem. So everything in the world takes up space, even stuff you can't see. But if it exists in the physical world, it must take up space. There's another thing about existing. To exist, there are many conditions, particularly for those things that are alive. A human being exists, you take up space. But in order to continue taking up space, here are the conditions. You must eat, you must drink, You must sleep. You must have protection from the weather. You must have protection from the wild animals. You have to have a support group. Somebody has to love you. Somebody has to want you. Somebody has to... And then, not just any food, it has to be certain food that fits your... It just goes on and on and on, just to exist. So, what happens when you have the right food, and you have the right drink, and you have the right house, and you have the right friends, and you have the right support, and you're warm in the winter, and you're cool in the summer? What have you accomplished? That you can take up space tomorrow. Take up space. It sounds nasty. Take up space means, this is my place. It's my chair. Get out. Get out. This town isn't big enough for the two of us. It's my space. Cain and Hevel. What was their problem? There wasn't enough space. They had the whole universe to themselves. Not enough space. It's my world. No, it's my world. Now, what is life? Life is the opposite. First of all, life makes no demands. Life is unconditional. Life does not take up space. Life means the function, the contribution, the effect that you have by existing. So what is the life of fire? It gives warmth. It gives light. What is the life of water? Makes things grow, keeps things cool. What is the life of a stone? Gives things stability. You build a house out of stone, it's more stable than a house made out of straw. So even a stone has a life. It makes a difference. It offers something. It contributes. Now, in order to contribute, there are no conditions. So, well, you got to live, so you have to eat. No. Eating is in order to exist, not in order to live. So you go to work to make a living. No, you go to work to make an existence. You still don't have a life. Now here's an amazing thing. Living and existing are like a seesaw. The more energy you put into existing, the less energy you have for life. The more energy you put into life, the less you need for your existence. And that's why a doctor in the time of a plague doesn't get sick. How come? It's a plague. It's contagious. He's exposed to it all the time. Why doesn't he get sick? What's he taking that he's not telling anybody else? The reason he doesn't get sick, and the reason he doesn't get tired, because sick and tired always come together. He doesn't get tired, he doesn't stop for meals, he misses sleep, and he's okay. Because he's so alive. His purpose, his function, his contribution is so vivid, so necessary, so urgent. Forget about existing. I'm alive. I'll eat tomorrow. I'll sleep later. And he can do it. With this we can explain many things. First and foremost, this explains teenagers. You thought there was no explanation. There it is. Why is it that 16 years old is so difficult? And the main question is the anger. Why are they angry? You have teenagers? You had teenagers? You were a teenager? Every 16-year-old has to be angry? They live in their parents' house for free. They get whatever they want if they're nudniks, you know? If they nudge long enough, they get whatever they want. And they're angry at the world. What is that? So you ask teenagers anywhere in the world, and they'll tell you. What am I angry about? My mother ruined my whole life. In every language, it's the same thing. My mother ruined my whole life. Why is it my whole life? Teenagers don't know fractions. The whole life. You see the mistake they're making? And it's tragic. It's dangerous. What they mean is, my mother ruined my whole existence. Not my life. First of all, you're a teenager. You don't have a life. You have an existence, and it's not even yours. like the girl who says, my mother went into my room. You take up space? Yeah, but it's not yours. You have shoes? They're not yours. Nothing is yours, not even your iPhone. So mothers really destroy your existence. Because how did you come to exist? Your mother owns your existence. It's true. Your life? Start living. While your mother ruins your existence, you should honor her so that you have a life. See, the same thing is true with tzedakah. What is tzedakah? You take a dollar bill that is good for your existence, and you give it to someone else to make their existence a little easier. What do you get in return? Life. Now you're alive. Tzedakah tatzil mimavos. Tzedakah gives life. Honoring your parents. What does it say in the Ten Commandments? Kabed es avicha v'esimecha l'ma'an. If you want to exist longer, honor your parents. How do you honor your parents? You give up a little of your existence to make their existence easier. You carry their bags, you serve them the food, you make their existence a little easier. The result is, you're alive. You have a life. There was one very angry teenage girl, very rebellious, and she said, I hate my mother, she's destructive, she's whatever, whatever, and I am not going to let her ruin my life. I said, good for you. Don't ever let your mother ruin your life. No matter what she does, you treat her like a mother. And she said, hey, that sounds good. Don't let her ruin your life. She's ruining your existence, but keep your life. Honor her, treat her like a mother. You have a life. Another thing it explains, what is it about the Jewish people? How is it that we're still here? Bigger, stronger, richer nations are gone, and we're still here. What is it? Just a miracle? The other nations wanted to exist. They did everything, they devoted themselves, they committed themselves to ensuring their continued existence. And they don't exist. We had a very different history. Before we came into Eretz Yisrael, Moshe gave us a pep talk. You remember? What did Moshe say to us? Okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to come into the country flowing with milk and honey. But don't get too comfortable because you're going to get thrown out. And you're going to get scattered to the four corners of the heavens, and you're going to be reduced to a fraction of your number, and you're going to suffer. It's going to be terrible. You're going to go crazy from the suffering. So the people must have said, well, that's it? That's the plan? So Moshe said, a good existence you're not gonna have. Forget about it. He spoke Yiddish. A good existence you're not gonna have. That's Yiddish. So we said, so what's the plan? You be busy living. Existence is not for you. Isn't that a perfect description of our history? For all of our history, we barely exist. We have a place of our own? No. We have enough to eat? No. To drink? Protection? Safety? Security? No. None of the things that are necessary for existence, we have none of it. But we are so alive. The worse our existence gets, the more alive we become. Isn't that amazing? And when you put your energy into living, your existence kind of takes care of itself. Have you spoken to a survivor of a concentration camp? Every one of them is over 90. 96, 98, 99. What is that? They had the most miserable existence. They are so alive. What other question gets answered by this? Humility. Very important to be humble. Very important. Don't take yourself seriously. You're not that important. You're insignificant. Particularly on Yom Kippur, we go on and on and on. I was nothing before I was born. I'm nothing now. I'll be nothing after I die. This is good. Why is it good? What happened to a good self-image? You have to be careful. Humility means humble your existence, not your life. A moment of life is worth everything. But your existence, hey, don't be arrogant about your existence. It's embarrassing. How you be proud of the fact that you take up space? Like if every song has to be about you, you are existing too much. You're taking up the space of every song. Not nice. But we never humble life. Remember Terry Scheibo? Right from your neighborhood here? Remember? She was in a vegetative state. Not really, because she was eating. But her husband, or her ex-husband, wanted to take her off food and just let her die already. And the argument was, her quality of life was gone. So just let her die. It was a debate that the entire country was caught up in. Every newspaper, everywhere. When does life begin? What is murder? What constitutes life? When are you allowed to pull the plug? When are you not allowed to? It was like a discussion in the Gemara. Sadly, the court decided that they can starve her to death. And they did. Big mistake. The quality of her life was gone. Life cannot lose its quality. Her existence was miserable. But, welcome to the real world. Our existence has always been miserable. You may not end a life because of a bad existence. Her existence was miserable. She had no space of her own. But her life, how long ago was that story?
10 years.
Much more than 10 years. Huh?
17 years.
17 years ago? 17 years ago, and you all know Terry Scheibo. She's very alive. She was having an immense impact on the country. That's alive. So now, to cut to the chase. I stop a guy in the street, say, "Are you Jewish? Would you like to put on tefillin?" He says, "I don't need that." I said, great, so let's put them on. He said, no, I really don't need this. I said, I know. If you needed tefillin, I wouldn't even talk to you. You're weird. You don't need tefillin. And that's why you should do it. Because if you needed it, it would just be part of your existence. All of our needs come from our existence. Life has no needs. Life means you are needed. Existence means you are needy. Pretty simple definition. So why should you put on tefillin? Because somebody needs it, not you. Can you get past yourself and your existence and do something you don't need? What is tzedakah? A hungry man knocks on your door and says, can you give me something to eat? And you say, I don't need this. What would the hungry man say? I know you don't need it. I'm the one who's starving here. So every mitzvah is a piece of life. Kihem chayenu. Every mitzvah is a piece of life because you don't need it. Can you exist without making a bracha on your cookie? Obviously, many people do. So why do you have to make a bracha? Because someone needs you to. And the fact that you don't need it, that's what makes it special. We're too caught up. We're too caught up in our existence. And we sometimes confuse it with life. It seems noble at first. Go to school, get a degree, get a good job. You can buy a big house, you can have a nice pool, you can have a yacht. You don't know what to do with it, but you'll have one. And then you'll be able to pay for your children's college, and they'll have one. Sounds pretty noble, especially if you're coming from a ghetto, from a third world country. This sounds amazing, but it's all existence. So what do we teach our children? It's really scary. In a secular society, what are children taught? How to exist. Exist means take up space. Take up space means we're at war. My space. We teach children how to cross the street safely. We teach children how to brush their teeth. We teach children how to avoid strangers. What are you telling them about life? Why should they be careful crossing a street? And today we're seeing the results. Children are actually asking, so what? So I'll die. Taking drugs is dangerous, it might kill you? Yeah, so what's your point? They have no appreciation for life, and they have a very good existence. That's a bad combination. People in third world countries don't get depressed. They're too busy. Because their existence is at stake. Once we become a little more affluent and our existence is fine, now you have to ask yourself, what for? What am I contributing? What's the point? We say l'chaim when we make a toast. Isn't that strange? L'chaim, to life. What, are you going to die from a drink? There's no other occasion where we say l'chaim. It's a little prayer for life, right? To life. I don't want to die. You think you're going to die from a drink? When you get on a plane, do you say l'chaim? Maybe you should. You go on a cruise, say l'chaim. Twice a day, every day. Because, it's, you're in the middle of the ocean. Say l'chaim. But when you're making a toast, what's with the l'chaim? You know what happens when you drink? You must have heard. What happens when you drink is that your existence relaxes. I don't know if you noticed this, but drunk people don't take up space. No, is that true? You buy a couch, and the salesperson says, this couch will seat 4 comfortably. Yeah, that's if they're sober. But it'll seat 9 drunk people comfortably. No, not true? If a 10th person shows up, so they'll squish a little. When you're drunk, they say your inhibitions relax. Yes, your spatial inhibitions. And that's why when somebody's drunk and he wants to talk to you, instead of standing here, he stands here. So of course you back away, but he follows you. He doesn't have a sense of space. That's what happens when you drink. So drinking means relax your existence, which is a very good idea. But only if you prefer life. If you're excited about life, you can relax your existence. If you're not excited about life, don't drink. All you have is an existence. Don't lose that too. And that's why you can drink on Simchas Torah, on Purim, at a wedding, if you're happy about it. But if you're sad, which comes from your existence, don't drink. So when we say l'chaim, we're not saying I don't want to die. To life means we prefer life over existence. Nobody's talking about death. So when do we say l'chaim? When you're about to relax your existence. And this is what Shabbos means. God says, 6 days of the week make your existence better. It's not terrible to have a good existence. God, don't get hung up on it. But make your existence better for 6 days out of the week. But 1 day out of the week, let it go. Stop already. It's good enough. Like in the olden days, you had a piece of herring and a kichel. Good, you have a Shabbos. It's enough. 1 day out of the week, instead of focusing on what you need, focus on what you are needed for. And that's for Jews. Only Jews are obligated to keep Shabbos because that's our history, that's our style. We choose life over existence. Historically, in principle, and weekly in Shabbos. So Shabbos has kept us alive more than we have kept Shabbos. Isn't that true? Without Shabbos, we would be like every other nation, completely obsessed with our existence, and it would have destroyed us. They don't exist. We do. So, if you want to understand what is the unique, particular quality that describes the Jewish people, we're smart? Not always. Not always. We're the kindest? You want to describe the Jewish people accurately? All you need is one tiny word. Am Yisrael. Get it? Chai. We prefer life over existence. And what that means, I would rather be needed than needy.